I did run into your boy Terrence.
Yeah, we were talking. Oh, do you want me to put my
You don't have to.
Huh? I don't have to? Okay, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. He is an award-winning filmmaker, writer, and producer. And I quote from his bio, his work is dedicated to shifting perceptions of African Americans in cinema, particularly in DC's Black community. Most of his work highlights the perseverance of Washington, D.C. residents. She is the first and foremost fierce person that loves her city. She loves Washington, D.C., and I know that, and she is very, very involved in the city. She's engaged in our political structure to include formally serving as a mayoral appointee on the Alcohol, Beverage, and Cannabis Board. And she's very involved in the arts, not only as an artist, but as a patron, and she sits on arts boards. I'm so happy to have with me in the studio today Mr. Dewey Ortiz Jr. and Ms. Rafi Aliya Crockett. They are the director, writer, and the writer-producer of the much talked about, and I know is going to get many, many awards, the documentary Higher Power. Dewey and Rafi, welcome to Cannabis Conversations.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
I'm so happy to have you all. We have seen each other quite a bit recently. I go back to when you called 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and asked me to do an interview for your documentary. I thought you were crazy. And I remember just calling people and saying, is this for real? Is this for real? And everybody said, it's for real. And then I went to the building on, where do you all do that, on North Capitol?
Creative Grounds. Our friends at Creative Grounds allowed us to use their space to do some filming, yes.
I didn't know what I was going to walk into. And when I walked in and saw a professional studio filming production setup and everything, I said, oh my God, I didn't dress properly, I don't have the makeup right, I freaked out, but you all put me at ease.
You did mention, like, is my hair okay? I didn't do my hair.
I didn't have my lashes, I didn't have anything. But I want to welcome you. How did you guys meet, and how did you come together on such a great project here?
Well, you know, we met in 2018, or 20, was it 2018? I think it was 2018. And in the summer of 2018, she actually pitched this idea of doing a documentary about cannabis. And I thought it was a really dope idea. I mean, a light bulb went off in my head, and I was just kind of like, why didn't I think about that? Like, that's like, and so I was finishing up a short film of mine called The Runaways, and I think we were in festivals around that time. And so once we kind of got through that winter, we started actually talking about it, and we started our interviews early the next year. But at some point during that time, we realized we really couldn't tell this film without talking about statehood and the importance of D.C. becoming a state and what it means for Washington, D.C. to not be a state. And that was, I think, one of the first epiphanies we had when talking about this film is this is going to be different than the other cannabis film that we've ever seen.
Yeah, when we first reached out to you, the first idea for this film was literally to just talk about Black people in the cannabis space, because we hadn't seen that story told. We hear the story all the time that we're not in this cannabis space, that we are less than 2% of ownership in this space, and we wanted to highlight folks like yourself and the others in DC who have overcome all of those obstacles and are breaking down all of those walls and shattering those ceilings to show, hey, we are in this space and this is how we were able to get here, so that we don't just kind of repeat that same very negative narrative that then would scare people off from getting into the industry. So that was the story we set out to tell originally.
And I don't know if you knew at that time, DC had the highest number of minority licensees in any other state in the United States during that time.
Yeah, and per capita, we still do.
Yeah, per capita we do. But to focus on us, not being a state, how did that affect? You sat on the board.
I did.
You sat on the ACA board. How did that affect how the rules and regulations have evolved from then to now?
Well, because Washington, D.C. is not a state and Congress has the ability to block us from implementing legislation that our council approves or ballot initiatives that we voters approve, first, medical cannabis in D.C. was blocked for over 11 years. We first voted for that back in 1999, and we didn't open our first medical cannabis dispensary here in D.C. until 2013. So that block went on for a very long time, and now we are still living under the Harris rider, which has prevented us since 2014 from implementing the ballot initiative that we all voted for an adult sales market. And so sitting on the ABC board was interesting because we had to work within these very confined limits that have been placed upon us by Congress, while also trying desperately to meet the needs of patients and consumers and business owners and visitors to our city, to ensure that they have access to safe cannabis and that our communities are being supported and having their needs met. So there's a lot of creativity and ingenuity that had to go into writing regulations in that space.
So how did you all collaborate on, to get to higher power? It's amazing how you covered everything. And with Rafi's experience and, being on the board, how did you incorporate that into such a great production?
Before I answer that, I just wanted to add that Andy Harris is an insurrectionist. So I just want to make sure we say that. This has happened since the film, but I just want to put that out there. Andy Harris is an insurrectionist. We had to walk a fine line, a number of reasons, but specifically, Rafi being on the board, and you got to understand, all this is happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
We're making this film, and Rafi is. Elevating is not the right word, but she's rising, right? She's on the board, she's making connections, and so we had to make sure that the film was honest and that it had integrity and that her integrity wasn't violated. And so we were very careful because, through this process, people, they want to work with you. They want to rock with you, right?
Yeah.
And they want to provide things to you. They want to give you, and she has a very strong compass and very strong moral compass, and sometimes we have to turn down things because it could look bad because of her status as a board member. But her status as a board member offered our film legitimacy because people that are working in the industry, dispensary owners, others, they saw her as not just a board member, but an advocate, and I think that's important too. When you're out here and you're doing the work, and you're black and you're progressive, you have to be professional. But I think it's important to show people that you could be an advocate for them, and I think she did a great job for that. And I think a lot of people who are part of the film feel that, and they feel this film is also an advocate for them. And that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure we did in the duration of this film, in addition to it being positive. It was really, really important that it was positive, that it was joyous, even though we was talking about these issues. We wanted to make sure that we showed people striving and we showed people building something for themselves. And it's so easy with any documentary to, even if it's accidentally dip into a negative, particularly around the things we're discussing. So it was a fine line we walked, I think.
How does this film differ from the others that you have produced and gotten awards for? Are those totally different in context, or they are advocacy, or?
They're still in the theme of, with my personal theme, which is changing the perception of black people.
Okay.
And so higher power is still in that vein, and in my opinion, the best one out of the ones I did, just because the joyousness of it and the colors of it. But the other films, 2 of them are narratives. They're a little bit more grittier. They're a little bit more real world. There's, one is about, a corrupt bag man working for the town's corrupt mayor. Another one is about a young teenage girl looking to escape the domestic abuse in her household.
Oh, wow.
And it's also the assistant, the supporting character is a young boy aging out of a group home. And so you have these kind of real world things I want to showcase. And then there's a docu-series about domestic abuse. It's called Domestic Violence Wears Many Tags. And these women in these stories share their stories of triumphing over domestic abuse and domestic violence. And though the films, even though they're all different, they still have the same themes. And I think each one individually sheds light on something different and something real about the Black experience.
Rafi, who introduced you to Dewey?
We met at a party.
Really?
Yes.
Because, the synergy is like you probably, it's like people that would have known each other for a long time because your hearts are, definitely at the same place.
No, we met at a party in MLK weekend of
Kings and Queens.
the
Kings and Queens.
Kings and Queens ball.
Shout
that
out to Brandon.
a friend of mine and a friend of his jointly have been hosting this party for years. And I've gone in the past, and I don't know if you had gone before.
That was my second.
But yeah, so we met at this party.
And meshed immediately, or did it take time for you all to?
I'd say we meshed immediately.
Yeah.
We like to say we bonded over Run the Jewels.
We did bond over Run the Jewels.
Run the Jewels is, for those who don't know, it's a hip hop group, LP and Killer Mike, and we both realized we both liked it.
The old group,
Run the Jewels is a new
Run
group.
the Jewels.
Yeah, Run the
Okay.
Jewels.
Okay.
Yes,
I
Run the
thought you were
Jewels.
going back to my generation.
Oh no, definitely our generation. RTJ.
So what do you all foresee that is going to take for us to actually legalize cannabis in D.C., even though we have done it? Congress has stopped us. Do you see us having a viable legal recreational market? They got quiet on me, y'all.
And like you want the real answer? You want the answer?
I want the real deal, the real answer.
I mean, Congress has become more aggressive in the last several years between the time we started this film in 2019 and the time we completed this film in 2023. The number of budget riders that have been introduced, not necessarily all have passed, but we're up to 18 in the 2024 budget. They might not all make it through, but the fact that there are 18 budget riders there alone shows you how aggressive Congress has become with Washington, D.C. They've also, actively had disresolutions introduced. They're actively against Washington, D.C. at this moment in time. And there are so many Republicans who are also actively against cannabis legalization. So you're against D.C. and you're against cannabis legalization. I don't really know. I would love to have extremely activist council and an extremely activist mayor who just said, you know what? We're going to buck Congress and see what happens. They
certainly can't put us all in jail.
Right. They
760,000 residents.
They threaten us with jail.
Yep.
Let's call their bluff.
I agree.
And I think it would be the perfect opportunity to share with the world exactly the tyranny under which we live in the nation's capital. People don't understand what's happening. When we show higher power around the country, we've shown it in Prague to a group of international drug policy activists. And folks from South America to Africa to the Caribbean to Europe were all like, wait, what? This is D.C. This is the capital of the United States of America, and this is what's happening here. So I think, go on, just legalize it. See what happens. Let Congress come after us. Let it be all over world news so that everybody can really see what it means for 700,000 U.S. citizens.
Tax-paying,
War fighting.
some of the highest taxes in the United States.
Yeah, let everybody see what's really happening here.
Yeah,
So
because
go
people
for
around the country simply don't understand that we are a district and not a state.
They don't understand. They don't understand it in tangible means because they live in states.
Yeah.
And I mean, and they listen. I'm not going to rag on people, but you know, you live in a state, you can't take it for granted, right?
Yeah.
And then when you learn about Washington D.C., you learn what it means to not be in a state. And I think, you know, the southern states, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, they're closest to those people there are closer to understanding what it means to not be a state. You know, their rights are taken away, or you know, or elections are altered when it doesn't go Republicans' ways, goes the Republican way. And I think, you know, it's going to take Washington D.C. becoming a state, and I think it's possible. I think it's a fight. You know, we've started this fight, but I think it's going to take people simply voting in senators and congressmen who are willing to vote to make Washington, D.C. the 51st state. And we've seen it in the House.
You know what it's going to take? A white mayor. I don't want to be, but that's, you know, that's how things change for us.
It's true. And even in the film, Beauchef, who for many years
Yes.
led DC Vote, you know, in Higher Power, he explicitly states, you know, the fight is moving rapidly at this point because the demographics of Washington, D.C. have shifted, and that we have a much larger white population than we did years ago. And
Much higher.
Much
it's
higher.
not Chocolate City anymore.
It is not. And that, you know, as the city continues to gain a greater white population, the chances of us getting statehood increase. It's very easy to disenfranchise 700,000 black and brown folks.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more difficult to disenfranchise, you know, 700,000 white upper middle class folks because it's not, you know, it's not poor people, it's not black people, it's not brown people. You know, the college educated white people are going to demand representation.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you know, one of the things that I'm on the Hill all the time, and I've been telling my friends in, you know, the city, Congress is really watching us, and the Republicans are really, they want to control us again so bad. And they're watching us, and so that brings me to the unregulated market, the question of that, and the reason DC is not using enforcement or anything to really keep it under control. We have so many unregulated businesses that are operating in DC, and I think, you know, I was a supporter and, you know, everything of opening up the market, but the way that is, it's just like the wild west right now, and people don't know who's licensed and who's not licensed. They're not going to go to a website and look at it. But what is your prediction of DC's legal cannabis market and DC's unlicensed cannabis market? Do you ever think that is going to be that DC is ever going to do any type of enforcement on that?
It's political suicide to take enforcement actions against cannabis. We voted to free the plant, and we voted to free the people. And anytime you are talking about enforcement action, even if it's civil, not criminal, there's going to be a pushback. And so we were going into an election year. Who on the city council is going to start talking about enforcement against cannabis in a year that they need to be reelected? So
I don't think anybody.
Right, nobody. So that's
I don't think
definitely
anybody.
that's
Yeah.
definitely not going to happen. We also have a real estate problem.
Yeah.
We cannot possibly grow enough cannabis in Washington, D.C. to serve all of the residents and the visitors who come into this city.
Well, the reality is that we're not growing enough to serve those of us that are licensed right now.
So, so mathematically,
Yeah.
it's not going to work. We are always going to have a traditional market, the
Yeah.
way traditional things work in this space where we're growing cannabis out west and it's being imported into our city. And that's going to always continue. And we need to find creative ways to implement interstate commerce pacts and other things like that that will allow us to continue to have cannabis that is legally sourced, tested, and safe, so that everybody in DC has the access that they need, whether they are using it for medicinal purposes or not.
Or not. That's not, you're 21 years old, you make your own decisions, right?
But I think you have to your point, come up with creative solutions. And I think, DC is a progressive city, and we can be an example for other cities and states in the country. And I think you have to tackle it, right? If you don't want to use the police to enforce, which I understand because the history of the drug war, you still have to find creative ways. And I think this is like the progressive dilemma. How do you figure this out without using police? Because the police have been so easily used to enforce whatever they want to enforce on Black and brown people for so long. And so, I don't know if there's the willpower to actually do it, but it needs to be looked at some point.
We need to get the market under control. I was all for, opening up for new licenses. And, you can't open any business in D.C. without a license. So get licensed and, just be regulated, and taxed, definitely taxed as we are. But, that it needs, and I think the city is making some good progress as far as opening the opportunities for those that are unregulated to come into the market. But at the same time, we need to put pressure on the White House to just legalize it, period.
Yep.
And we're between two countries that have totally legalized, Canada and Mexico, and many countries around the world have legalized. Just putting it down, descheduling it, rescheduling it to a 3 is not going to solve our issues at all, but it will help on the tax side,
right,
for those of us that are legally licensed. That tax 280E is kicking our behinds. It's very much, you can't survive, you know.
And the DC taxes are kicking your behinds too.
That's right.
And the city had an opportunity to alleviate that burden, and the city chose not to alleviate that burden for you all. And that is extremely disappointing.
It's very disappointing. It's extremely disappointing because when you look at 280E, which is the tax law that we are talking about, and because we're a district and not a state, DC has imposed that on us as well. So we have to pay it twice to IRS and to DC. So that's 65 to 85 cents to every dollar revenue going to taxes. So that doesn't leave you any room to operate. So therefore, it's creating a multi-state operator market rather than a market for small business owners,
right,
and particularly for business owners that are minority, because we don't have generational wealth and we can't, just write those checks to IRS and operate our businesses. So I'm very upset about that as well.
Yeah, and some of the individuals who we profile in higher power are individuals who want to get into the regulated market. They've been operating in the traditional market for years. They want to have a legal business. They want to pay taxes.
They do.
They want to be, contributing to the growth of this city. But there are just so many obstacles placed in their way that they've just found it extremely challenging. And that's, from the tax burdens to the real estate burdens.
Yes.
To the
real estate is a whole nother thing, y'all, because you
investment,
cannot find it at all.
The investment burdens to the lack of resources that at this time the city is providing. The city is not providing any kind of grants or low to no interest loans so that individuals who are Black and brown, individuals who have been directly impacted by the war on drugs can actually enter this market.
Yeah. And one of the things is our employees, government employees, don't realize the impact that this is having on us. And they don't realize the fact that we can't get grants from the city. They offer the grants, and I said, I can't take this grant. I don't, this is something totally different. But so going back to the higher power, I just love this documentary. It's I can't get enough of it. I mean, not because I'm in it, but
Self-plug, let's go.
but because it's powerful. It is really, really powerful. So I know that you did the Black Film Festival here in D.C., and I know that there are other festivals that you've done, and hopefully many more coming up. You want to talk about that? And what it's like? What does it feel like seeing your film on stage on the screen like that?
I think we screened 9 times. 4 of them have been festivals. 4 of them, or 5 of them, have been conferences, or maybe I have it the other way around. I don't know how many festivals we signed up for next year. There's several. And we're also going to be doing some screenings here locally. We have some ideas to do some screenings regionally. Maybe at this latter half of the year, we'll be signing with an education distributor and putting the film out that way. So all those things are in the works. And it's been, the reception has been really wonderful. People have been educated. They've been activated. There was a lot of things her and I worked on in the course of making the film to make sure that it was perfect and people really understood clearly what was happening. And that was very important. I didn't want people to come away from it not understanding, being kind of confused. It seems to be from the audience that we got it right. And so I really appreciate that. I think, our turnout, Rod and I, when we go to these places, we're like glad handing. We're shaking hands, we're kissing babies, we're telling people to come to the screenings.
Yeah.
Like we're doing it ourselves to make sure we're putting butts in seats. We did that in Miami at ABFF. Our show was packed.
Wow.
Richmond, there was a lot of people there. All the conferences, we've had really good screenings. The DC Black Film Festival, we packed it out. We packed it out, DC Black Film. We had, we took, guerrilla style. We were talking about, should we do this, should we not do it? And she was like, let's do it. But we went, we took our step and repeat and just set it up in front of the box office. On the sidewalk. and start people coming up and taking photos. And I think that's, when you
that
have
personal touch too. How many people have actually touched producers, writers of documentaries? They get to see you, they get to touch you, and it changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah. And we've had, like Dewey said, we've had this 2-prong approach. He's a filmmaker. He's really cares about these festivals. That's really important. I'm an advocate, and so I was interested in what other spaces can we get this film in it, where people will be activated. And so we, alongside DC Vote, took it to Netroots Nation, which people refer to as Progressive Summer Camp. So there's thousands of people from all over the country, all over the world, who are all fighting for various progressive causes. And so we were able to show the film in this space, filled with people who are fighting for civil rights, human rights, voting rights across the board. And so that was really important. We did the Drug Policy Alliance's Reform Conference in Phoenix a month or so ago. International drug policy activists from all over the world were able to put their eyes on this film and understand, not just about the cannabis legalization part, but about our need for statehood and self-determination. So it's really been this 2-prong approach, doing both festivals and both kind of social justice events as well.
What I would really like to do, and I think it just really for us to find the right partner, next year is an election year, and I would really like to use this film to educate people on the importance of statehood. It comes around every other time, and I feel like there's a strong progressive movement happening that has been growing, and I think, from the reception we had at the screenings, people are activated, they're educated, and I would like to, continue using that. Just get people, not even connected with anyone politically necessarily, but getting people activated in the importance of statehood. And when they're going to see their people who are running or they're going to voting, they're asking, how do you feel about D.C. statehood? D.C. should be the 51st state. How do you feel about that? Are you going to vote in favor of that? And use it as one of your top topics, or top important things that you choose to cast your vote for this person for. So.
Are you all collaborating on anything else? Because Lord knows I don't want this to end with just the higher power.
I want to,
it's
but, CB, I want to, but I'm gonna throw a little public pressure on her. She's a great producer.
You're
she knows
a great
how to get,
team.
She knows how to get things done, and I think it's very hard to find people like that. People who, because doing this stuff, making films, it's really, really hard work, but but making quality films is even harder. And I particularly just don't like to put anything out just to put it out. It needs to be good. It needs to be really, really good. And we're going to work on it until it's really, really good. And it's hard to find people like that because people say they want to work on films, but we indie. And so they realize the amount of work it takes. And it's like, until we have a real financial backer that can, a production company or financier, you got to do a lot of work to make it. That's just kind of the nature of the beast,
So, if anybody, are there streamers or can people actually see it online, or how can they see the film?
So right now, Higher Power is not available for public streaming because we are still going to festivals.
Okay.
We are hoping to sign an educational distribution deal at the end of the year so that we will have access through universities and public libraries, because we do really want this to be used as an educational tool. So that's extremely important to us. And so we'll be continuing to do festivals through early summer of 2024.
Oh my.
We've been provided a grant from the Commission on Arts and Humanities here in DC to do additional public screenings here in the city, as well as some screenings in DC public schools. So as part of a great, civic education, I don't think we teach civics enough in school anymore.
Not anymore.
But I think Higher Power is a really great tool for civic engagement. And, young people, they're, razzle dazzle, get the cannabis will bring them in. But it's really to learn about statehood and what they need to be doing to fight for it as DC residents. So those are some of the things that we do have, coming up in ways that folks will be able to engage with Higher Power.
Please don't stop. Please don't stop. Y'all keep going, because I have to tell you, I was totally surprised and pleased with the professionalism and just the entire film. It was just perfect. There was not one error. It was really wonderful. So, how can people contact you all? Or is there a website?
Yeah, so you can contact us at higherpowerfilm.org.
Okay.
Come there. You can sign up for our
our newsletter.
Sign up for our newsletter, and there you can also we have merch we're selling there. You can see the latest screenings we'll be doing. You can see our trailers. Also follow us on Instagram at Higher Power Film. There you'll see a lot of updates and promotions, and that's really we're really keeping that running and going and keep people up to date through those two places. And Facebook, Higher Power DC.
That is great. And I just want to say thank you both so much. And to the listener audience, we have to support each other. And we have to support our black film writers and producers and just the entire arts side. And let's get this film out there. Let's do everything we can to help them succeed. You're going to learn so much from it. It's just wonderful. But I want to thank you both for being here. You're welcome to come back anytime.
Thank you very much for having us.
And I just wanted to also thank you for giving me the honor of being in your documentary. I really appreciate it.
Great. We thank you, of course, for taking the time to participate in the documentary. And we also want to just thank the DC as a whole. The city really came out to support this film when we needed a place to do a shoot. Our friends were like, yes, you can use our coffee shop. Yes, you can use my art studio. You can use my gallery. You can use my small business. When we needed music for this film, all the music in the film was made by DC artists.
That is great.
And for the most part, they didn't charge us an arm and a leg for it. Like, we have a small budget.
Yeah.
And they said, no problem. You can have it for free or for a nominal amount of money. The film also features art in the shots when we were setting up, and that's all local DC visual artists. So the DC community really came out to support us, in addition to funding from the Commission on Arts and Humanities and HumanitiesDC. We definitely could not have completed this project without city funding. And this was a labor of love.
Nothing
not
like
just for
DC,
us.
y'all.
Right.
I mean, we support each other,
We do.
and
True.
we still have a lot of of that southernness in us in DC, that we're all family, and when family members need one another, you got it.
Yeah.
You know, you
We
got
got
it.
it.
Well, I want to thank you again,
Thank
and
you.
I'll see you here on Cannabis Conversations podcast soon.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Shay.